Are you from the Canadian embassy?
I am, yes. Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. My name is Siddharth.
Siddharth?
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, Jake.
Jake.
You've been here a long time?
I've been here 2 years. I've been here to learn Chinese. That was my first posting. I got over in May. I got a job for another 3 years.
Okay. So you'll be here 3 years, 2023?
2023, yeah.
Jake from Czech.
I have the right name.
He's attending where I was
British Columbia in Canada.
All right. Sounds good about coffee better.
I think it's just different color, different quality. I think also Burma is also the source of Jake as well.
The water smell.
Was there any in India or no?
No. We have something very similar. Ornament.
Okay. Trade.
I do economy trade.
Okay, perfect. So you're kind of reporting on the economy and...
Yeah, economy, trade, everything.
Okay.
There's a small team.
Okay. I was going to say, do you have a specific sector or
No.
in trade or it's all... That could be a big
How does it work if you are
Yeah, we have a number of different trade officers, and the different officers are responsible for different areas. So we'll have one person responsible, say, for life sciences, tourism, someone else responsible, say, for automobile aviation. So it just depends how big the pile is to how many different sectors.
How many trade officers do you have?
We have about 10, and then we've got local staff as well.
Paris.
Yeah, well, China's one of our biggest offices. Yourself, how many?
There are 3 of us, 4 of us now, but one of our Chinese, one of our emails is going to PMI.
Okay.
That is 3 of us.
Will someone come in to replace the fourth person?
We're
Or?
hoping that someone will come in.
You are with whom?
Well, that's interesting.
How long
But,
have you been here?
I've been here almost 2 years.
And your tenure is 4 years?
Normally it's 3 years, and then we'll sometimes have the option to extend for an additional 2 years. Yourself, is it normally 4 years?
It's 3 years.
3 years.
When language training depends on the difficulty of the language.
Right.
Because Chinese is a slightly tougher language, it's 2 years. Some will learn French in our system.
Okay. Yeah, for our language training, it's the same depending on how hard the language is. It's different length of time.
So do you have to undergo language training before every posting or not?
It depends on the position you're going into. So we have some positions where you do need the language, and we have some others where you won't necessarily need the language.
Is trade, how is trade categorized?
I think pretty much most of the positions you need the language.
So what are some of the positions where you don't need language?
So for instance,
that all of us take to get a lot of the language based on our choice and also the position in entrance examinations and all that. But that's the only language you can learn in your career.
Okay, and is the idea is basically your career will be in China the entire time?
Not necessarily. Very few officers end up doing something like that. So, I mean, and there are, I mean, especially with one country languages, it's tricky because there are only so many positions.
So you could potentially say go to another country if it didn't require a language?
The next position would be Canada,
Okay.
where I might not use the language at all.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
At least for, I mean, if you're learning Chinese, wherever you go, China is a big player, right? So, some you use your colleagues, right? Chinese community in different countries. I'm sure Canada also has a relatively large Chinese community.
Yeah, especially more on the west coast. Yeah.
So I might get to use it at least. But someone learning Japanese is if he or she does not go to Japan.
Yeah, it's you're using it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for us you can apply for whichever country you want, and then depending on the position, like you'll need language training. So in theory, one person could learn like 2 or 3 different languages.
So generally do you learn language in the country where you get posted or do you have
For us, we learn it in Canada, so we have what we call it language school, but it's basically we have, I think the government has an agreement with a language school, so whatever students they have for whatever language, they'll contract a teacher to teach the language. And then depending on the language, easier languages, you might get language immersion in country or in a country that speaks that language for 3 weeks, I think. For the more complicated languages, you might get 3 months of immersion.
so you've been here before?
Actually, before my language immersion, no. How about you? Had you been here before you came to
I've seen China across the border.
Yeah.
Beyond those mountains there.
Okay. And you're enjoying your food here so far? Relations go up and down. It's definitely an interesting place to be. I haven't had a chance to travel that much yet, but I want to. Do you have spots that you can recommend going to?
Modern China sort of period, Shanghai, even down Shenzhen, slightly not the most touristy thing would be
Yunnan is on my list of places I want to go visit.
it's still not that, I mean, as developed as Hong Kong, I mean, say, but you get to see how, I mean, a place is done, people are trying to just generate and
Right.
I strongly recommend it.
Is there a lot of local tourists in Yunnan? Or do a lot of people from across China travel there themselves? Or?
But it's a different experience compared to I mean, any other place. Strongly, I'm not been to Northeast. I've been going to Central Tibet. I can't. Otherwise, I've been. I've been spatially not the exact same problems, but regions are okay. Yunnan is definitely different from everything else.
Good afternoon. Questions, please. Xinhua News Agency. The National Statistics Bureau released the August PMIs, showing non-manufacturing figure at 55.2, above the 50 mark for the 6 consecutive months. The figure for services increased from 53.1 to 54.3. Wall Street Journal and FT are saying that it shows China's stimulus measures are working. Scholars believe that before external cycle resumes, China's domestic cycle is working and economic growth relies more on domestic demand. Do you have a comment? This is not a diplomatic question, but I understand it has gathered a lot of attention. We noted the data released yesterday by the Statistics Bureau. Despite the impact by COVID-19 on China's economy, the Chinese economy has demonstrated great resilience and potential. China's GDP expanded by 3.2% in the second quarter back into positive territory, making China the first economy to register positive growth. As you just said, in August, the demand in manufacturing is resuming and the demand-supply cycle is also improving, showing the positive effects in China's epidemic prevention and control and socio-economic development and improving economic prospects. IMF forecast put China as one of the few countries that will maintain positive growth in 2020. According to the latest survey, more than 99% of foreign companies in China will continue to invest and operate here, and 89% of surveyed EU businesses say they are not considering moving industrial chains out of China. China remains one of the top 3 investment destinations for most European countries. These are a vote of confidence in China's development. Given in the evolving development stage, environment and conditions for China's development, we have set out the goal of a new development structure with the domestic cycle as the mainstay and with domestic and international development reinforcing each other. It's not a closed domestic cycle, but an open dual cycle. China will further tap into domestic demand, expand opening up and share more of its development dividends with the rest of the world. We hope our development will fuel the development of the world, will further lower tariffs, shorten negative list, and ease market access and make market rules more transparent and the environment more attractive. Will upgrade the economy and provide more opportunities for the world. Next question, please. Global Times. Secretary Pompeo, in an interview, said that we are going to make sure that the data won't land in the wrong hands and will protect American users' information. I wonder if you have a comment. For some time, Secretary Pompeo has been practicing what he said in Texas A&M University. We lied, we cheated, we stole. On cybersecurity, he's lying every day. No one could understand why TikTok, a popular app with the youth, where people upload singing, dancing, and funny episodes, how can that pose a threat to national security? If we look at the US, it has been traveling all over the world, trying to sell the argument of the China threat theory. But if we look at the US, it proposed a clean network proposal, but as a matter of fact, the US is an empire of hackers. Back a decade ago, there's already the dirt box. The NSA has been using fake base stations named dirt box in wiretapping programs, including boundless informant, since a decade ago. So through dirt box, they have collected 62.5 million phone data from France. Pompeo didn't tell the world the US has been using phone apps to steal data. Leaked documents of PRISM have shown that NSA sees apps as data mines with huge reserves of data to be harvested and invests heavily to this end. Under the agency's pressure, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Skype, Google Map, and even Angry Birds chose to participate in the program. Also, US intelligence use app stores to steal data. According to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, NSA and the Five Eyes launched the Irritant Horn program to hijack Google Play Store to serve spyware and exploit bugs in the system. The Five Eyes Alliance exploited the security flaws of browsers and succeeded in acquiring a mass of data. Also, with regard to Clean Cloud, Washington Post exposed that NSA, along with the Government Communications Headquarters of the UK, launched a surveillance program called Muscular to break into the cloud servers of Google and Yahoo. This was how hundreds of millions of personal information records were collected with clean cable and undersea cable tapping. New Zealand Herald revealed that the US has been tapping data flowing in the Chinese Consulate General in Auckland. It spared nowhere in the Chinese consulate, not to mention the undersea cables, the intelligence gold mine. Washington Post exposed some of the US fiber optic cable tapping programs known as Oak, Star, Storm, Blue, Blarney, and Fairview. Associated Press wrote that U.S. Navy went out of its way to repurpose a submarine called the USS Jimmy Carter so they could tap fiber optic cables. The 2009 Quadrennial Intelligence Community Review showed that the U.S. intelligence agencies conduct cyber operations and, with other means, research facilities of other countries to help American corporations. The Snowden documents show U.S. surveillance program ordered the installment of secret signals intelligence equipment in around 100 foreign diplomatic embassies and consulates in other countries for spying purposes. So the U.S. vision for a clean network means a China-free network. The absurd truth is that the U.S. can be the only one to have a world-spanning surveillance state. There's also the crypto AG scandal. The Swiss company was proven to be a puppet for CIA and has been working for it. People must retain their sense of credibility and shame, so we urge the U.S. politicians and senior officials to stop smearing China. Next question, please. Shenzhen TV. the Australian government will look into foreign interference in its elections and also look into China's 1,000 Talent program. Do you have a comment? I have seen relevant reports, but we still need to check on its whether it's true or not. China is committed to developing relations with other countries on the basis of mutual respect and non-interference. Interfering in other countries' domestic affairs never runs in the veins of China's diplomacy. Australia is a close ally of the US. For some time in Australia, some people in Australia seem to have been infected with the paranoia against China, which has led them to pen trumped-up charges on normal people-to-people exchanges with China. If they really want to look seriously into foreign interference, there are many leads. For example, recently media revealed frequently that certain Australian institutions have been funded by the US. For example, the SPI. It has been revealed by some in Australia that this organization has long been receiving funds from the US government. And arms dealers and at the National Foundation for Australia-China Relations, 2 of the members are funded by the US Department of State. That really gives us some food for thought. During the past 2 decades, with concerted efforts, China-Australia trade volume has jumped to more than 235 billion Australian dollars. And there has also been dramatic increase in the number of students, as well as the number of tourists.
长远意义的是，中澳两国大学合作论文的数量以及前1%论文的引用率均名列前茅。
We have also seen robust cooperation between the academic institutions and researchers. So these facts are a good reminder. In Australia, there's also a saying, if you look at the sun, you will not be troubled by the shadows. We hope that the Australian government and officials and those with reason can look at the bright future of bilateral relations, the sun, and not the clouds or the shadows. We hope Australia will follow a constructive instead of a destructive policy towards China. CNR, the University of North Texas announced that it is cutting ties with China's Scholarship Council, and researchers funded by this program will need to leave the country. I wonder if you have a comment. I noticed some reports on this. If that's true, it will be another example of some in the US sabotaging people-to-people exchange. I have also noticed that some people have raised concern in the US about this. During the 41 years of diplomatic relations, people-to-people and cultural exchange played an important role to enhancing people's mutual understanding and promoting the steady development of bilateral relations. For a long time, the students and researchers made important contributions to technology, innovation, and economic development in the US. Data show that Chinese students in the US account for 1/3 of the total, and they contribute more than $15 billion every year. But unfortunately, some people in the US, out of selfish political interests, worked to suppress and contain China's strategic needs, and made up lies to stigmatize and demonize Chinese students, and use trumped-up charges and judicial power to suppress Chinese students in the U.S. Under such circumstances, I don't know if Chinese parents feel assured sending their children to the U.S. to study. Openness, inclusiveness, and diversity, these are the concepts the U.S. is founded upon. But today, things are very different. It is filled with seclusion, hatred, suspicion, and xenophobia. Openness brings progress, and seclusion backwardness. We hope the U.S. will work to promote people-to-people exchange with China, look at bilateral relations more rationally. If it goes down the wrong path, at the end of the day, the U.S. interests will be harmed. Also a question on Secretary Pompeo. He said that we are going to distrust and verify. We aim to induce change in the CPC's behavior. American people deserve it, and our national security demands it. I wonder if you have a comment. The U.S. diplomacy today has been reduced to diplomacy of intimidation, lies, and sanctions. Leading U.S. diplomats spend their days smearing China and spreading lies. They have the wrong focus and are walking down a dangerous path. Pompeo is ambitious, but as the Chinese saying goes, it is important to know one's own limitations. China has a civilization of 5,000 years, and CPC will be celebrating its 100th anniversary next year. It has around 92 million members and 20 million applicants for membership. According to international polls, including by Pew Research Center, etc., the Chinese people's support towards the CPC and the government exceeds 90% on average. This year, we have seen that under the strong leadership of the CPC, the Chinese people have united as one and achieved strategic success in the fight against COVID-19. As a research by a Singapore-based survey agency shows, the Chinese people shows the highest support and satisfaction towards their government's response to the virus, a historical high. If we take a look at the U.S., I won't comment on that because there has been a lot of media coverage. According to the Center for Public Affairs at the University of Chicago, co-funded by AP, 2/3 of Americans believe the U.S. is handling the pandemic worse than other countries. And 80% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And some renowned scholars say it's preposterous and arrogant for a country with a history of less than 250 years to believe that it can change a major country that has a political civilization running for thousands of years. The world is watching the U.S. with concern on its domestic affairs and foreign policy. We have seen a lot of racial discrimination, social division, and the surging pandemic. Some politicians have been spreading hatred and division. If they have the least sense of responsibility, they should focus on saving American lives. They should listen to the desperate cry of ethnic minorities like Blake and Floyd. I don't think Pompeo is in any position to say if any other country is worth trusting. What he should do is to gain the trust of the American people. South China Morning Post, Australian ministers say anchor at CGTN Chenglei has been detained in China. Could you give us the legal status and the condition of the case? Also, Assistant Foreign Minister Chen Xiaodong is no longer at his position. Could you give us about his future job? On your first question, I don't have any specific information for you, but you know China is a country with rule of law. Everything is handled in accordance with law. If you want to get more information, you can ask competent authorities. I have nothing to offer here. Second, thank you for your interest in Assistant Foreign Minister Chen Xiaodong. You know, as with diplomats, it is the case that their jobs tend to change. So his future job will be released soon. Kyoto News. The Czech Senate Speaker is visiting in Taiwan and showing his support. I wonder if you have any comment. On the visit by the Czech Senate Speaker to Taiwan, China's position has been made very clear. Yesterday, Deputy Foreign Minister Qin Gang made representations with the Czech ambassador over this issue out of selfish interests and instigated by Taiwan forces and anti-China forces. They took upon this tour that has drawn strong condemnation from China. There's only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. The One China principle is Czech Republic's policy and the political foundation for bilateral relations. The Senate Speaker went against the consensus and deviated from the country's One China principle commitment. China will surely take a legitimate response to safeguard its interests. We also call on the people in the Czech Republic to criticize the short-sighted behavior of the Senate Speaker and the similar practices that undermine China-Czech relations. We hope those driven by selfish interests to challenge China's sovereignty will treat China's position and concerns seriously and do not underestimate the 1.4 billion Chinese people's firm resolve to safeguard national sovereignty. CCTV, Assistant Secretary Stilwell at a forum held by the Heritage Foundation said that U.S. policy has been guided by Taiwan Relations Act, the China-U.S. joint communiques, and President Reagan's 6 assurances to Taiwan. Declassified 6 assurances are still valid today. U.S. latest moves are not a change in policy, but one of a series of major adjustments under the One China framework. He said is forging new dialogue with Taiwan. What's your comment? There's only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. The One China principle is the political foundation and basic precondition for China-U.S. diplomatic relations. the U.S. unilaterally formulated the Taiwan Relations Act and the 6 assurances. They violate the One China principle and the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, and violate basic norms of international relations, interfere in China's domestic affairs. They are wrong, illegal, and void. The Chinese government opposed them from the very beginning. The U.S. should abide by the One China principle and the 3 joint communiques, not the Taiwan Relations Act or 6 assurances. Taiwan question relates to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity and China's core interests. Nobody should estimate China's firm resolve to defend sovereignty and territorial integrity. We urge the U.S. to abide by the One China principle and the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, stop elevating relations with the Taiwan region in substance, and stop any forms of official engagement with Taiwan, and stop traveling further down the wrong and dangerous path. FSN 关于陈磊，很多人猜测他被拘留很可能跟他的国籍有关，这可能跟澳大利亚和美国的关系也有关系。对此有何回应？ As I just said, I don't have any information on the specific case. You need to ask competent authorities, but I would like to stress that China attaches importance to relations with Australia, but it takes concerted efforts on both sides to develop this relationship. China handles cases in accordance with law. We will not act like other countries that bow to allies' pressure to do illegal deeds. China News Service. The World Bank reported that internal irregularities has led to a pause in the release of doing business reports. I wonder if you have any comment. We have noted the news from the World Bank and urges it to conduct internal investigations in accordance with the principles of fairness, objectivity, and transparency, and the rules and procedures for multilateral institutions to earnestly safeguard the reputation of the World Bank and its member states, as well as professionalism and credibility of the doing business reports. Chinese government attaches great importance to improving business environment, adheres to world-class standards, and deepens reform to delegate power, streamline administration, optimize government services to stimulate the vitality of market players and social creativity. Last year, on average, an increase of 10,000 companies are registered every day, and annual FDI registered 2.4% increase. They are real and recognized by the world. We will continue to deepen reform and create market-oriented, law-based business environment and a favorable environment for high-quality economic development. India 印度方面表示，在通过外交和军事渠道保持沟通。印方一直呼吁要恢复之前的现状，请问中方有何回应？On issues left over from history, including boundary issues, China always believed in peaceful consultation to find a mutually acceptable solution. For some time, indeed, China and India have held a multi-level engagement and talks and made active efforts to peacefully resolve differences on the border and possibly disputes in order to safeguard peace and tranquility along the border. But on August the 31st, the Indian troops broke earlier consensus reached at meetings and talks, and on the southern bank of Pangong Lake and near the Reqing Mountain, Indian troops illegally crossed the line in open provocation, causing renewed tension. It violated China's territorial sovereignty and the two sides' agreements and consensus, and undermined peace and tranquility along the border. It goes against the two sides' efforts for some time to ease the situation. China expressed firm opposition and lodged solemn representations. We ask the Indian side to immediately stop all provocations, pull back the trespassing personnel, and stop actions that might complicate or escalate the situation. 中印双方都指责对方实施挑衅行为，你可否说明一下具体情况？ The Indian side's statement may be different from China's, but there's only one truth and fact. 70-odd years since the founding of New China, China never provoked any war or conflict and never occupied an inch of other countries' territory. China border troops always strictly abide by the LAC and never cross the line. Perhaps there are some communication issues. I think both sides should stick to facts and have goodwill in maintaining the overall bilateral relations and take concrete measures to jointly safeguard peace, tranquility along the border. We noticed that for some time in India, there have been many media reports about increased military along the border. I think people of the two countries want to live peacefully together, and such Indian media reports are not consistent with people's aspiration. We hope the Indian side will take China's concern seriously and make concrete contributions to peace and tranquility and development of bilateral relations. Beijing Daily. Stilwell said that recent U.S. adjustment in policies is due to rising China's threat, and there's also been criticism on Pompeo, calling him the worst secretary because of his political aspirations that lead him to manipulate U.S. foreign policy. What's your comment? Diplomats should work to promote mutual understanding and friendship and cooperation, but today American diplomacy has become diplomacy of coercion, sanctions, scapegoating, and lying. Some senior diplomats are always attacking and smearing China with lies and hatred. They also interfere in other countries' internal affairs, even colluding with separatists and terrorists. International rules mean nothing to them. They trample on fairness, justice, and withdraw from treaties and organizations. U.S. has withdrawn from more international treaties than any other past administration. That's U.S. misfortune and a threat to the world. Even U.S. media couldn't stand the foreign policy performance of this administration. Major countries should have a basic sense of responsibility. We hope the U.S. could act accordingly and shoulder its responsibilities. If it is not contributing to world peace and stability, at least it should avoid making trouble. 路透社，美国国防部将11家中国公司增列到受军方控制的实体名单，有可能会采取新的制裁措施。你对此有何评论？ This is further proof that the US diplomacy has been reduced to diplomacy of sanctions. So every day they are lying, cheating, scapegoating, and smearing and attacking China. If they're not doing that, they are imposing sanctions on other countries. That's just very sad. China has stated its solemn position on US suppression of Chinese companies. The US designating 11 Chinese firms as PLA-controlled entities. This latest development is in disregard of facts. It has no legal basis. China opposes that. The US abuses national power to suppress Chinese businesses. It goes against its market principles and international trade rules. Chinese businesses always comply with laws and regulations. Wherever they operate, including in the US, they follow market laws and legal requirements. On the basis of respecting market principles, we have the sincere wish of developing cooperation. We hope the US will stop abusing national security concept to suppress foreign companies. This is wrong. I don't believe doing so will bring the US any good. Anything else? China Daily. Former Indian President Mukherjee passed away. How does China comment on his role in bilateral relations? Will you express condolences? Former President Mukherjee was a veteran statesman of India. In his 50 years in politics, he made positive contributions to China-India relations. In 2014, he received presidency, and the two sides issued a joint statement on building a closer developmental partnership. It is a heavy loss to China-India friendship and to India. We express deep condolences over his passing and extend sincere sympathies to the Indian government and his family. Any other questions? If there's nothing else, that's all for today. Thank you.